What's up everyone, it's HK Gaming. Welcome to the Breakdown project. In this series, we'll be looking at different items or gears in different games. So if you like this series, please let me know by hitting that like button or comment below. In this video, we're gonna be looking at the rest of the Epic Charm, which is the class specified charm. First, let's start with the Samurai. For Perk 1, it has melee damage just like the Katana. Melee resolve gain and all the other things are the same. So I highly recommend using the melee damage as Perk 1. It worked perfectly with the Katana. I'm very lucky here to get a 12% melee damage on my Samurai Charm. It's 24% in total. And for the second perk, it's like the melee charm. So it's like a Katana perk with Charm perk together. The special thing is that you have this spirit pool targets with the explosive blade radius. So when you're using the spirit pool, it will only steal the health from one enemy. So having that perk will make you steal two at the same time. And for the explosive blade radius, when you chop into the enemies, it will has that little blast, and the explosive radius is for that. But I've tested, it really doesn't work as good as it sounds. The damage they done is very little, so even if you can hit other enemies, it doesn't do a lot of damage. And for perk 3, it's like any other charm, but with that rising tempo. So if you kill the enemy without taking damage, it will increase your damage afterwards. But it is very hard for you to keep killing enemies without taking any damage. So it does have a potential to use it, but it will be very difficult for you to exploit this perk at its full potential. The next perk is I highly recommend, Blast Strike. Doing melee damage will heal you while your class ability is active. So you can use the explosive blade to add up some more damage, and it can heal you as well. So it is a very good choice for you for some extra healings other than the Ronin skills. The lifesteal it has is ridiculous. Just a few hits and then your HP will be full again. This is the biggest reason why you want to use the Samurai Charm with the Samurai. The one that I'm using is the melee resolve gain because I couldn't get the melee damage. And then I have the ultimate damage as perk 2. And then I would suggest you to use the Blast Strike. It is the best perk. Of course, you can use the stagger damage with melee damage as perk 1 and perk 2. It will also work with your Katana. But there are so many possible outcomes, you really need some luck to get the perfect one. Next is the Hunter Charm. If you don't want to use the utility, then the Hunter Charm will be the best choice for you if you're playing as Hunter. The perks are just like the ranged weapon perk, but it has the Hunter ability radius. Increase the radius of stagger arrow and the explosive arrow. But personally, I think that the class ability already has a pretty good radius. It will hit most of the enemies. So for me, I would say just go with the range damage or the headshot damage. Of course, if you want, you can do the range resolve gain as well. But these three are the ones that I recommend for perk 1. And then for perk 2, it is just like any other charm. It has like fire damage and stagger damage and ultimate damage and things like that. And if you're playing as Hunter, the ultimate damage and the fire damage are the ones that are highly recommended. Ultimate damage will work with your legendary bow, which is the Skipping Stone Bow. And then the fire damage will work perfectly with the explosive arrow. So if you want to play more ultimate like, you want the ultimate damage. But if you're like me who like to use the explosive arrow a lot, then you want the fire damage. And for perk 3, you want the Fire Master as your perk. Fire Master and the fire damage work so well together. The explosive arrow is crazy. And there are also some new perks like the Fall Arrows. Headshot also applies weaken to the target. It sounds pretty good, and your ultimate is automatically aiming for the head, but the ultimate damage does not count under the weakens effects, so I would say it's not that good. And then we have the blast arrows. Headshot also heals nearby allies. This requires your teammate to stay near the enemies that you hit headshot with, which is mostly not the case. So I will say Fire Master is still better than these two new perks. And for the last perk, Scavenger, increase ammo scavenge from pickup by 100%. But if you have the headshot refund, you don't really have to worry about the ammo most of the time. So I would say Fire Master with fire damage, and then range resolve gain with ultimate damage, and then range damage with the headshot damage. This is the perk that I highly recommend. You can mix and match them. Next is the Ronin Charm. This is also the one that I highly recommend using if you're playing as Ronin. For perk 1 is like the defense charm, but it has the healing instant radius as the new special perk. Increase radius of the healing instance. This is the one that I highly recommend you have on your Ronin Charm. Just look at the healing instant. It covers up the whole place. It can let you to do damage or do anything else in a very safe condition. Next we have the healing instant duration. Having a longer healing skills is always better, but even without the duration, the healing instance will have enough time for you to recover the whole health bar. And then we have the healing spirit radius. Increase the radius of healing from spirit animals. So this goes with perk 3. There's a perk that makes your spirit animals have healings, which we'll get into later. And for perk 2 is completely same, since I have the weakening burst radius on my perk 2, so it is not showing on perk 1. So for the weakening burst radius, it is our class techniques. In perk 1 there's a weakening burst. Cost 1 resolve to apply weaken to nearby enemies. It is a very good perk. It does sound very useful, but I will have to find a way to build just for the weaken. Otherwise, it is not worth it to use that weakening burst, since it costs resolve, and the Ronin is very heavily rely on your ultimate, so you don't want to waste your resolve on anything else that is not necessary. So for the special perk, I only recommend having the healing instance radius. And for perk 2, I recommend having the injury resolve gain. So when you take damage, it's easier for you to charge your ultimate a little bit faster. So you can revive your team or just use it for the health regeneration. You have the healing instance and your ultimate as a healing weight, so taking damage won't be a big problem for you. And for the perk 3, the special perk is Spirit Bear. So your spirit animal will now summon a bear instead of a dog. I found that Spirit Bear is very strong and it's good to use, but you have to give up that healing instance, so I'm not quite sure if this is worth it. I wouldn't say so, but if you like, you can use that. And for the second special perk is the Healing Spirit. This is the perk that we talk about with the perk 1, which is the Healing Spirit Radius. So now your healing animals will have a small healing instance around them. The dog for me are not strong enough to overtake the healing instance, plus I will have to use that healing spirit radius, so I wouldn't suggest to do so. Next is the Assassin Charm. This is like the Stealth Charm. The perks are the same, but there are few new perks, which is the Toxic Vanish Radius for the first perk. I don't recommend using the Toxic Vanish. I suggest using the Group Vanish since you can vanish with your teammate. And then the vanish duration is really not needed. Mostly you will just do the stealth attack damage before it ends. And then assassinate from above damage is a lot of damage with 20%, but it is super hard to achieve. You will first need a high ground, and then you will need the enemy not seeing you, so you can perform that stealth attack. For me, I will just go with stealth attack damage as perk 1. It is the most easiest and the most effective. And for perk 2, there are so many possible outcomes. Too many possible outcomes. But out of all this, the only thing that is useful for the assassin is the cooldown reduction. It will reduce the cooldown of all ghost weapons, so it can help you with the smoke bomb, which has a very long cooldown. Of course, you can use the cooldown reduction on kill as well. It works perfectly with the stealth attack damage, since you'll be heavily relying on your smoke bomb. But the cooldown reduction on kill only gives you 2 seconds per enemies, so I would rather stay with that 10% passive cooldown reduction. The next thing you want to look at is the ultimate damage. If you like to use a lot of your ultimate with your assassin, then this is a very good perk. Other perk does not work very well with the assassin, so I would say you either go with cooldown reduction or cooldown reduction on kill or ultimate damage. Since there are so many possible outcomes with perk 2, it is very hard to get the perfect one. So for me, as an assassin, I don't like to use a lot of my ultimate. I still have the ultimate damage. And for perk 3, the special perk is Chain Vanish. Assassinating an enemy will reactivate the vanish. It also works with the class techniques, which is the Chain Vanish as well. So you can go in Vanish and assassinate 3 enemies at maximum. But for the class technique, I would say that 2 extra hit for the ultimate will still do more damage than just 1 assassination. Or you can use the legendary perk, so you can equip 2 legendary items. And for the Assassin Charm, I would say this Hysteria is much better than the Chain Vanish. Assassination causes nearby enemies to hallucinate. It will give you more time and space to attack, and the enemy will be doing damage to themselves as well. It is a very strong perk, and it is very funny to watch them just to attack themselves. And yeah, that's all the epic charm. I highly recommend you use the class specified charm. It is very strong and it enhances your class ability as well. Hopefully you found this useful. And that will be it for today's video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll be making more gaming videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.